result. But go ahead.
Right, so that was in July, and he had to redesign his house again. So in the process of all of this redesigning, I've heard maybe 15 times, he was also doing his inventory survey. And there were 4 different occasions, March, I believe in June, and then one more in October, and once again in December. And that's during the course of those surveys, they discovered the 30 EV. In December, he went again before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission, I believe, asked Ms. McMahon to come and, on behalf of SHPD, share their perspective.
And in that process, it's true, isn't it, that they published a notice in either about March, I think, of 2007, to let the public know that one burial had been found on the property.
Right.
As I recall. And then through the subsequent phases of the survey, another 29 were found. But as I understand it, there wasn't any publication of that discovery.
No.
Correct. So in fact, basically, all the public knows, without reviewing the documents, is that
there was just one burial.
Yeah. And I think, wouldn't that make a difference, Lenneth?
Yes,
you're Hawaiian.
definitely.
If you knew that one burial was there versus 30
Yes.
in a less than half-acre
If I knew
parcel.
there were, more than 30 burials there, of course I'd be, very interested in what's, going on.
Okay, so by the end of 2007, we have this discovery, not really publicized, and this proceeding now before the Planning Commission. What was that about? Why did it need to go to the Planning Commission?
This was again about the design of his house, and again approving a redesign because of all the court cases and the archaeological inventory survey, I believe. And so Ms. McMahon was before the commission saying, if you don't give us final approval for the design, we don't know where to dig and to look for EV, because we need to know where the footings are going to be.
Is that the way you're supposed to do it?
Well, it should have gone to SHPD for review and comment before that. I mean, it shouldn't go through planning, get final approval, and then go to SHPD. They're supposed to have a review and comment process that happens.
And why is that?
Prior. And that's so that the Planning Commission can be fully informed beforehand, before they're giving approvals for the house design, so they can make adjustments and redesign the house to accommodate.
In other words, so if they had the information, they'd know what to tell the permittee to do in order to protect as many of those burials as possible.
All the conditions.
Right.
And
Having the review and comment from the SHPD?
Right.
And the Burial Council?
And the Burial Council.
Okay.
Right.
And that didn't happen, I take it?
No. So
in fact, I was curious what you're saying, because you're saying that an SHPD staff person was telling them to go ahead?
Right.
Isn't that contrary to what you just said about what should happen?
Right. So I'm not sure why it went about this way, but apparently they asked SHPD for someone to come and give their opinion, and during that meeting, the commission members were saying, well, what happens, if we give this approval now, what happens if more burials come up, or how do we accommodate for that? And Ms. McMahon was saying, no, you need to give that final approval so we can complete this inventory survey. If we don't do that, then the burials that are discovered will be considered inadvertent burials, and it won't go before the council. So she said, I wanted the council to have a say over this.
But why was she saying that she needed the approvals to figure out where the subsurface testing should occur around the footings? Was that the way you typically conduct an AIS and try to determine the extent of a burial site in order to figure out the protective measures for that site?
No, in this case, I believe she said that because her point was that the house has been redesigned so many times. They keep looking where the footings are supposed to be, but because the house design keeps changing, they're having to do additional testing and additional testing. But it really is backwards.
Okay.
I mean,
and why is that?
They should have done the testing initially, and then base the design of the house on the testing. But they're only looking for EV under the footings, and I think that's a major problem, because in their opinion, building over EV, as long as it's not digging into them, is not desecration. But I think that's a fundamental disagreement that we have, and that the descendants have with the department.
I see. And so what happened over the course of the following first few months of 2008 following, I take it that the Planning Commission did approve that house plan.
Right.
And that was a condition of the prior special management area permit that was adopted in 1981.
Right.
Okay. What happened with the Burial Council now that they got this basically hot potato put in their lap, kind of like after the approval, which was, as you say, backwards? What happened with the council?
Well, the council was told that, I believe they were told that you know, the house is going to be built. Your job is to determine whether these 30 burials should be preserved in place or relocated, but you have no control over whether the house will be built or not. So basically, you know the house is going to go there. Do you want to leave the EV there or not?
What kind of choice is that?
It's not a choice, and you know, it's really difficult for, especially for Native Hawaiians, because maybe Lenneth can explain more, but moving the EV is desecration.
Yeah.
Any altering, you know, any way that you disturb the EV in general is considered desecration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, the passage of the spirits and the ancestors, you know, they're basically not completed, you know, the traveling and the, you know, going on into the next world and so on. So definitely desecration, any altering.
It sounds like they were kind of put between a rock and a hard space there about trying to do anything culturally appropriate with these burials when the law is designed to give them advance say over what should happen to burials before design decisions and permitting occurs. Mm-hmm. In this instance, you're telling me that the permitting occurred first, and then the council was told to figure out what to do that was culturally appropriate to protect these burials. Mm-hmm. But it seemed to be locking them in a position of having to figure it out under the presumption that the house was going to be built, which I understand what you're saying is backwards. Okay. So what did they do? I mean, they were put into this kind of a conundrum here, so what did they do?
So 2 members walked out of the meeting, and 4 members voted to preserve the EV in place. And you could tell just from, I wasn't even there, all I had to do was read the minutes to see that it was a really difficult decision for them.
They were troubled by this.
Very, very troubled. Okay. And a lot of community members came out at the meeting to oppose both the building above the burials and the relocation of those burials. So during the meeting, some of the council members themselves said, this is a cemetery, there should be no building on top of here. But they were told, no, all you can do is determine preserve in place or relocate. So the 4 remaining determined that they wanted them preserved in place, and that would be the most